Lucy watched the toy cupboard, which was halfway open and so dark it could be holding 3 Draculas and she would never be able to tell. Susan watched the art table, draped in big sheets of construction paper that hung off the sides and wafted back and forth in the breeze from the radiators. Jason paid attention to the cloakroom hallway, which also led to the washrooms where the Dracula had pounced at least 5 times. Leonard kept his eyes up, watching the shadows of the blinds as they crisscrossed the ceiling. They watched everywhere and all at once. But Leonard was right about the Dracula being tricky. It had hidden underneath Mrs. Shelby's desk, where Mrs. Shelby put her knees. While the 4 of them watched the ceilings and the cupboards and the tables and the washrooms, the Dracula cricked its back and bent its knees, and with a breath like a winter wind, pulled itself up to the full height over the desktop. "Hum!" Lucy exclaimed, putting her hand to her mouth as she saw the Dracula and it saw her. Its feet were on Mrs. Shelby's chair, so it loomed almost as high as a grown-up. Its big orange eyes glowed in the dim light, and its jaw clicked as it opened and closed. It made a noise like a little kitten, and then it started to buzz. Leonard swallowed hard. The Dracula reached down to the desktop, and its long-nailed fingers closed around something. It buzzed louder as it lifted the thing into the air, swooped it back and forth. Susie and Lucy had a hard time recognizing it, and Leonard wasn't paying attention, but Jason got it immediately. The Dracula was holding the Concorde. It was plastic and grimy. Its stickers had been coming off since Halloween, and it was not even as long as a 12-inch ruler that Jason held in his fist. Until Christmas, the Concorde was Jason's favorite toy in the toy cupboard. The Dracula stopped buzzing. "Play?" Its bright orange eyes blinked, and it leaned forward so far that Jason thought it might fall on its face. But the Dracula kept its balance and made the Concorde do a loop-de-loop. "Hi," said the Dracula. "Play?" Jason barely heard a 12-inch ruler as it fell from his hand and clattered on the linoleum floor. He took a step toward the Dracula, and then another. "Sure," said Jason. Let me see that." He put out his hands, and the Dracula stretched and bent so that only its toes were touching the top of Mrs. Shelby's desk. The Dracula's clawed hands swung down on Jason, and he reached to the Concorde that it held. "Walton!" Leonard yelled. Walton was Jason's last name, and Leonard only used it when he was so mad that he was going to beat Jason's head in. This time, though, Leonard wasn't mad. He only knew that he had to get Jason's attention away from the Dracula. When you look into a Dracula's eyes, it's got you. Leonard yelled, "Walton!" again, and this time it got Jason's attention. "Hey!" Jason looked away, and then he looked back, and then his face crumpled into a hot red ball, and he started to cry. The Dracula remained above him, still offering the Concorde. "Play, here." Dracula pushed the Concorde down at him. "Take it." But Jason just sat down and wept. The other 3 stood there and watched. Susie wanted to go and get Jason a Kleenex or something, but Lucy stopped her. Leonard was getting his cross ready. "Come on, we got him." The Dracula was almost on top of Jason now, pushing and prodding him with the wing of the Concorde. The 3 of them lifted up their popsicle stick crosses and marched forward in a straight line. "Hey, Dracula," said Leonard, "look at this." The Dracula looked, and as it saw the 3 crosses, its eyes became wide and round as pool balls. The Dracula dropped the Concorde, lifted away from Jason, and fell back against the desktop. Papers were flying as it scrambled to get away. "You like that?" yelled Leonard. "Stupid, stupid Dracula head?" Lucy and Susie joined in sing-song. "Stupid, stupid Dracula head," they all sang as the Dracula stumbled off the far side of the bed. "Stupid, stupid Dracula head," they sang as Lucy and Leonard circled around either side of the desk. Jason wheezed and sobbed and picked up the 12-inch ruler he dropped when the Dracula took control of his mind. Then he stood up and joined the chorus. "Stupid, stupid Dracula head, stupid, stupid Dracula head." The Dracula managed to get to its feet before Lucy and Leonard could get around the desk. It had merely made it to the toy cupboard by the time they caught up with it. Susie touched her cross to the Dracula's hand, and it screamed with a sound like a strangling kitten. When the wood came away, there was a burn mark on its knuckles like it had been branded. The Dracula stuck its head into the cupboard and tried to get inside, but Leonard managed to get a hold of its legs. When it kicked, it nearly sent him flying. Leonard reached into his belt loop for the 12-inch ruler and tried to stick the Dracula with it, but it was too far inside. "I can't hold on," yelled Leonard. "I'm coming," hollered Jason. "Wait for us," squealed Lucy. It was a tough fight, but together, Lucy and Leonard and Susie and Jason managed to pull the Dracula out of the cold toy cupboard and lay it on its back. It thrashed back and forth, its legs going like pinwheels, and its fangs nearly gave Leonard a cut on his hand. Leonard got his 12-inch ruler. He took a deep breath. Susie took hold of the pointed end and put it against the Dracula's chest. "That's where the heart is," said Lucy. "I know, because I'm a doctor." The Dracula's eyes were screwed shut. Its shoulders and knees trembled where Jason and Lucy had it pinned. "You're not a doctor," said Leonard. "Am too," said Susie. "Ask Lucy. She's a nurse." Leonard was about to ask Lucy when the shutter went through the 12-inch ruler and he almost lost his grip. The Dracula coughed and his mouth spasmed open. Its two thin fangs slipped from beneath its leathery lips for the barest instant. They looked like nails, Leonard thought. Little nails like his mom used to hang pictures in the living room. The Dracula's lips folded back over its mouth and its eyes opened. Their glow was diminished by shadows, but the eyes still reached up to Leonard. They pleaded and tried to draw him down. "No way!" screamed Jason. He let go of the Dracula's knees, reared up in his own knees, and slammed his hand down hard on the top of the ruler. The fabric of the Dracula's t-shirt pushed in as the tip of the ruler slipped over a rib, but Jason's weight wasn't enough to push the stake in by itself. Leonard shook his head rapidly and said, "That was close." He put his hands on top of Jason's and added his own weight. The Dracula's t-shirt began to redden. Lucy let go of the Dracula's shoulder and grabbed hold of the ruler as well. The Dracula flailed, and it snapped and bit and shrieked as the splintering tip of the ruler pierced its ribcage. It was harder than any of them had imagined. On Mr. Hammer's matinees, the stake always went in after one or two whacks from a mallet, and the Dracula just hit a bit before it got killed. Killing this Dracula was hard work. Finally, Susie piled on top. Combined, the weight of the four of them was enough to send the ruler the rest of the way into the chest, and the Dracula's cold, congealing blood shot up like a geyser. Its eyes shut tight, then opened wide, and then they became still, their orange glow extinguished. Jason started to sob. He had pressed down too hard on the top of a ruler when he jumped on it, and now his own hands were bleeding freely. The other three were fine, but hearing Jason, one by one, they followed suit. Leonard was the last, and his tears came reluctantly. The recess bell rang at 10:50 a.m., but Mrs. Semple, the principal, told the kids from the morning kindergarten to stay outside for a while longer. When one of the kids said she had to go to the bathroom, Mrs. Semple had one of the older children take her around to the big kids' washrooms on the other side of the school. Mrs. Shelby stayed in the kindergarten until the police and the ambulance came. She ordered the hallway from the gym to the door to the schoolyard sealed off so that no one could get to the kindergarten but her. She looked at little Timmy Slitskin for what seemed like a long time. They were all so small at this age, and this one, there was always something precious in the special ones, wasn't there? Mrs. Shelby knew that she should have called her parents already, but she couldn't bring herself to, not right away. The parents of the special ones were in so much pain already. Who knew what Mr. Slitskin would do in the face of this tragedy? Mrs. Shelby felt a February chill as the door to the yard opened for the paramedic stretcher, and she shivered. So I'm going to do just a tiny little bit of the title story, just because, there's an election coming up in Toronto, and nobody can get enough of municipal politics there. So as soon as we get to the beginning of Knife Fight, I will get going. One wonderful thing about pads is they're really easy to read, but really tough to turn pages on. Okay, Knife Fight. Just going to be a tiny little bit. Not many outside the confines of the political wing at City Hall would guess it, but our new mayor is an expert with a knife. He has been practicing since he was a boy, from the day he first laid eyes on the 11-inch Bowie knife jammed hilt deep into a tree stump in the family's ancestral woodlot, and withdrew it, claiming it as his own then and forever. The concrete of his father's basement workshop floor is still flecked with tiny reddish-brown dots, a Jackson Pollock record of the young mayor's apprenticeship, those nights when he was too slow or worse, too quick. Those days are long past, and now the mayor is neither. He is merely bold. He is an expert. Since the hour of his swearing in, the mayor has kept the knife in the desk drawer next to his chain of office, wrapped in an oilcloth tied with thin leather straps. There it slumbers 6 nights a week. The 7th, Thursday, the mayor carefully unwraps it, holds it to the fading afternoon light to see that its edge remains keen, and, in the company of his older cousin, the one who oversees road repairs in the West District, the mayor steps into the elevator that takes him straight to the parking garage. And so it begins. And so it ends for now. Thank you very much.
Known as angels from the sky and